Okay, here we are in the third section, as we've marked it out, of the Phaedo. This material I'm going to talk about now runs from pages 68 through 77. And once again, we return to the theory of the forms as a means of establishing something about the nature of the soul. So this importance of the theory of the forms can't be underestimated. It keeps returning. So what have they purportedly established so far? At least in the last argument, the idea was that they had established that the soul must exist before one is born. That is, one's soul preexists one's life in terms of bodily life through this argument about opposites. But as, let's see, I think it's Seeds says, the bottom of page 68, top of page 69, for admitting that she may be generated and created in some other place and may have existed before entering the human body, why, after having entered in and gone out again, may she not herself be destroyed and come to an end? That is, so if we've established that the soul exists before the body, but have we established that the soul has an existence after the death of the body? So Socrates goes on to try to fill in the second half, or establish the second part of the proposition, that the soul not only pre-exists, but that it post-exists, an existence after the body. I want to say one thing about these arguments. How seriously are we to take them? Well, we're going to look at them. I want you to read them and analyze them and try to evaluate them, whether or not they prove what they claim to prove. But how does Socrates feel about them? If you look, there's a very interesting little exchange between Socrates, I believe, and Cebes. This is the character whose name is spelled C-E-B-E-S. This is towards the bottom of page 69. Cebes answered with a smile, "Then, Socrates, you must argue us out of our fears. You must argue us out of our fears. Our fear is that the soul is not immortal. And yet, strictly speaking, they are not our fears, but there is a child within us to whom death is a sort of hobgoblin. Him, too, we must persuade not to be afraid when he is alone with him in the dark." Socrates said, "Let the voice of the charmer be applied daily until you have charmed him away." Cebes answers, "And where shall we find a good charmer of our fears, Socrates, when you are gone?" Reminder that they know Socrates is going to die soon. They're going to miss this man. This is the last time they'll be able to talk to him, and the last time they'll be able to seek his wisdom. Although, of course, Socrates claims always not to have any wisdom, just to be an asker of questions, a seeker of other people's wisdom. So it's a reminder of the dramatic context of the dialogue, which should always be kept in mind, and it's also a kind of reminder that Socrates perhaps doesn't take every one of the arguments that he presents here as being fully convincing. That is, he has in mind, too, his situation and the situation of his friends. They need arguments to find truth. That is the central part of the dialogue, and in the next section, we'll see, or the section after the next, we'll see that it's very, very important. That is, that to believe, to have faith in the power of argument, of reasoning, of dialectics, conversation, talking about things, philosophy, to have faith in the power of philosophy to find truth is very, very important. But at the same time, they need arguments in perhaps a more personal way, and that sometimes arguments may not in themselves be fully legitimate, fully convincing, but that we may need them for practical reasons, that they may or may not give us the truth, but perhaps they give us what we need to believe. That's hanging in the background. In any case, how does Socrates try to prove that the soul exists after the death of the body? Well, by a certain idea of what the soul is. There is a distinction that he makes towards the top of page 70 between the compound, that is, that which is compounded of parts, like any physical thing that we know of down to, an atom is made up of parts, something compound, composite, as opposed to the uncompounded, that is, which is simple, that which has no parts. And what are the kind of things that are uncompounded, that have no parts? Well, no material thing for Socrates. Material things always have parts. He says in the middle of page 70, then now let us return to the previous discussion. Is that idea or essence, idea, essence, form, concept, the things that have been referred to before, which in the dialectical process we define as essence of true existence, whether essence of a quality, beauty, or anything else, are these essences, I say, liable at times to some degree of change? Or are they, each of them, always what they are, having the same simple, self-existent, and unchanging forms, and not admitting of variation at all, or in any way, or at any time? Well, yes, these are the forms, concepts. The idea is that the world, you might say, is made up of two entirely different sorts of things. On the one side, we have material things, the things that we can only know through our senses, and these are always particular things. This cup of coffee, this pen, this body, these bananas, and these are material things, and the idea is that they're made up of parts, and that they are also in flux. They are in a constant state of change. And that would be true of everything in nature, everything in the material world. But Socrates believes that there is, in the universe, or in our world, an entirely different sort of existence, and that is the ideal, the conceptual, the intellectual. The realm of material things he often calls the realm of becoming, things that are in a constant state of coming into existence, changing, and then going out of existence. But then there's the realm of being, things that don't change, things that are of such a different nature that they can't even be thought of changing. For instance, think of concepts like numbers. Think of the number 1, which is not a physical thing. It's not defined by any one symbol of the number 1. There are many such symbols. Roman numerals, Arabic numerals. It's called uno in Italian. It's called 1 in English. It's called ein in German. They all point to a concept which can only be grasped with the mind. And the idea is that concept never changes. It's not in time. It's atemporal, non-temporal. Everything else is in time. It's temporal. So once he's established that there are those sort of things during the course of the argument, and look at it carefully, he says, well, with what part of ourselves do we know this unchanging reality of concepts, which include, again, concepts like number concepts, concepts like logical concepts, but also the forms that he's referred to before. He's often gone back to equality, the form of equality in itself, but he often talks about things like justice and virtue and the good and the beautiful. These also, for Socrates, are unchanging forms. With what part of ourselves do we know